The Elbaf Island arc just skyrocketed from 0 to 100 as some major events just got placed into motion. We had the Straw Hats orchestrating a heist, or at least 3 of them, with the help of one of the last giants you'd expect, or maybe the exact one you think would help them out in this kind of situation. The 2 mysterious intruders have finally revealed why they're after Loki, and we even get the name and full design reveal of one of them. Prince Loki has just declared war on the entire world, and we might have finally just learned exactly how Shanks became an emperor. There's a lot of exciting things to go over about this chapter, but before that, we need to talk about Luffy because something huge happened with him in this chapter. He remembered Haruna's name. And not only his, but Stasis too, and he just met the guy. This is a big departure from the Luffy who normally sticks to assigning nicknames to his friends and allies, usually only bothering to remember their actual names under very specific circumstances, which is exactly why it was such a big deal to fans that he right away remembered both Bonnie and Carrot's names, because that's usually a giveaway that he has grown an incredibly strong bond with someone and is likely to invite them to join the crew. And while yes, he has technically known Haruna now for a couple of months in universe, I wouldn't exactly call the 2 of them close, at least not on Luffy's end. In fact, I'd say that Usopp has a much stronger connection to the giant. And he literally just met Staunton like an hour ago, so it's really weird that he already has his name committed to memory. I'm not saying that Luffy intends to invite these 2 to join the crew by the end of this arc, or that this is some major growth in Luffy's character. I just think it's an interesting choice made by Oda. And speaking of interesting choices, I really enjoy the fact that Oda has thrown some doubt into the idea that the sun god Nika was this all-around heroic figure, making it very clear that even the culture that has the strongest connection to him that we've seen yet is not even 100% sure if he was meant to be this liberating warrior or the one who'd bring doom to the whole world. Really makes the idea of Luffy being his newest iteration make a lot more sense. You know, considering the fact that even though most would call Luffy a really good guy, at the end of the day, he is incredibly selfish. Probably the most selfish person we've ever met in the entire series. And as we learn, the only thing the Giants know for sure about Nika is that he is the herald of great change, which does fit everything Luffy's done throughout the story. Everywhere he goes, he does drastically change the quality of life for everyone on each island he visits. But here's the thing about change, it's morally neutral. It can mean good or bad. I mean sure, Luffy will gladly risk his life to help save a country from an evil dictator, especially if someone from that country gives him food, but he's just as likely to do something completely self-serving, even at the expense of others, if it helps him get what he wants. As we see right here in this very chapter, after hearing the full story of how Loki killed their king and is a danger to the giants on Elbaf and the world as a whole, Luffy still intends to free him simply on the off chance that he's telling the truth about knowing where Shanks went. Hell, he even wrote part of his crew into this, which honestly isn't that surprising considering that Luffy had no chance of pulling this off sneakily by himself. Though I do gotta say, I was a bit surprised that Nami willingly joined them in this little jailbreak. I mean, Zoro makes total sense. He usually is the more logical one between the 2. He even tried to convince Luffy that Loki was clearly tricking him, but over time, the 2 have started to share a single brain cell more and more, so it wasn't hard to believe that he'd get roped into all of this. And hell, I wouldn't have even second guessed if he had managed to convince Chopper or Usopp to join in. But Nami going along with it honestly was the last thing I expected. Which I guess is more a slight on me and my understanding of the character, because I just assumed she'd have a normal brain and not want to help free Loki, especially after hearing how dangerous he was. When I should have realized that her greed and desire to steal all the treasure locked away in the castle would overrule her common sense. And since I assumed she had to leave the treasure she was stealing on Egghead behind, yeah, it makes sense that she wouldn't pass up this golden opportunity. Especially since those 2 mysterious intruders assumedly took out both the giants that were guarding the castle in the last chapter. We technically only saw them take out one, but considering the other didn't come rushing over to warn the rest of the giants at the party, he's probably not doing too well anymore. And hey, while we're on the subject, we finally learned the name of the female intruder that took out the giant in the last chapter. Turns out she's a god knight, her name's Gunko, and based on what we see of her in the chapter, her power is to take the clothes she's wearing and turn them into an arrow-shaped thread, and she's able to control it at will, using it in this chapter to seemingly kill Loki's wolf companion. Meaning that Oda just broke the one rule of fiction that you don't ever break: you never kill the dog. You can kill people young and old all you want, but dogs are meant to be protected. Until we get some kind of confirmation in a later chapter that it survived, we have to assume that she killed it, which means that despite me wanting to like her based on her design, I unfortunately have to add Gunko to my list of characters in One Piece that I just refuse to like. It wasn't a long list, only had 2 other names on it before today, that being Axe-Head Morgan and the witch from Wano whose name I never bothered to remember, but now we can add Gunko right onto it. Anyway, getting back to the story, we do find out that the reason these two were looking for Loki was to invite him to join the Holy Knights, which he very quickly turns down. And honestly, this whole interaction surprised me because while I know that was the leading theory as to why they were after him, I personally never bought into it, mostly because I didn't think that they'd recruit outside of one of the 19 families that make up the world nobles. But I do guess, considering how most celestial dragons have very little, if any, fighting ability, it does make sense that they'd eventually had to recruit from outside. And Loki, being both a member of a royal bloodline as well an extremely powerful warrior, he fits the bill perfectly for a god knight. Again, not that he'd ever accept the offer, but it does make sense that they'd make it. But even with them trying to force his hand, he still sits firm on his choice of deciding to go his own way and try to achieve his own goals. What are those goals, you ask? Well, apparently, once he gets free, he plans to destroy the entire world. Pretty big goal, but if he's anywhere near as strong as the Giants made him out to be, then he just might be able to do it. The only thing standing in his way are the chains binding him to the Atom Tree, the Shanks clone and friend standing right in front of him, an actual island full of giants who already don't like him, Shanks, and the actual new iteration of the god he thinks he is. But hey, if he's able to make it past all of that, then yeah, sure, he has a solid chance of accomplishing his goal, but as if he really wants to do that. I'm still personally not sure if I buy into him truly being this evil figure that he makes himself out to be, and I probably won't be until we get a full-on flashback into what really happened when he killed King Harold. We got more details about it in this chapter and some pretty damning evidence to make it seem like he really is the bad guy, but at the same time is making me more suspicious if we're being told the whole truth. Not that I think that any of the giants are lying to us about it, just that maybe they don't know the full story. Or who knows, maybe Jarvo actually has been lying about it this entire time. That would definitely explain how he survived getting a sword stabbed through his head, because it's probably not real. But either way, based on the way things are progressing, we're probably not too far off from getting the flashback. Loki obviously hasn't seen Shanks' face yet, but once he does, I expect that to trigger it. And when it does, we'll not only get to see the full truth about what happened to King Harold, but we'll get to see in real time exactly how Red Hair Shanks went from an up-and-coming pirate to an Emperor of the Sea.